Hello everybody, this is our presentation on UML sequence diagrams. Teammates are Kyle Mueller, Michael Knight, and Reynolds Canaston. So in this slideshow, we will be demonstrating what UML sequence diagrams are, how they are used, and when you should use them. We will also be going into the upsides and the downsides of using UML sequence diagrams in our work. So first, we'll explain what a UML sequence diagram is. A UML sequence diagram models the flow of logic within our system in a visual manner. It also enables us to both document and validate our logic within a project or system. They are also commonly used for both analysis and design purposes. They also illustrate how the different parts of a system interact with each other to carry out a function, and they also show the order in which the interactions occur. And I've included a picture here just to give you a quick example of what one looks like. The content of this image right now doesn't matter because my teammates will later explain what goes into a UML diagram. But what's important to see in this image is you can see the flow of logic that goes into this picture. Each element flows into the next and has an important connection to the element that follows it. So to continue, UML guides the creation of multiple types of diagrams such as interaction, structure, and behavior diagrams. A sequence diagram is the most widely used interaction diagram. And as we saw in the picture on the last slide, and as we'll see in the pictures to come, a sequence diagram is structured in such a way that it represents a timeline which begins at the top and descends gradually to mark the sequence of interactions. A UML is really helpful because it provides a visual representation of who the main actors are, what roles they have, and how they interact with all the other classes and elements in a given system.
Simply put, a sequence diagram is a way to show an interaction or interactions in terms of time. As you can see, this example represents how our game will respond to the input from the user. Interactions are shown using boxes, lines, and arrows like all UML diagrams. Time progresses from top to bottom. In this example, the four interactors would be the user, take input, move character, and UI. The vertical dashed lines represent the timeline, also known as lifelines. First, the user sends a message to the take input in the form of a key press, represented by a solid arrow. The take input then interprets the message and sends the direction message to move character. This example is slightly simplified as there may be steps in between, but the user will eventually receive a response in the form of the character moving on screen. Responses are always displayed as dashed arrows. After that, another interaction takes place. The user enters another key press, which is again interpreted by the take input, but in this instance, it is a command to open the settings. Take input sends a message to the UI controller, which then responds by sending a display of the settings to the user. You can see on the image that there are rectangles along the lifelines. These are called method call boxes and represent the processes that are done in response to the messages sent. This is where data is used and manipulated or interpreted to complete some task in response to the messages.
There are many advantages that come from using UML sequence diagrams. Firstly, creating UML sequence diagrams can help to visualize and better understand complicated functions or systems. Sequence diagrams can be an effective tool for helping members of a team to visualize how sophisticated functions work within the project they are working on. They can help illustrate how different objects interact with each other and can be used in conjunction with usage scenarios. Another advantage of using UML sequence diagrams is that they are language neutral. Regardless of the language being used in a project, UML sequence diagrams can be used. This is helpful because sometimes the language being used for a project can be changed before development starts. When that happens, the UML sequence diagram will still be relevant to the project. One of the biggest advantages of using UML sequence diagrams is that they are easy to create in a group setting. Creating UML sequence diagrams in a group can help to clarify any discrepancies and can help all the team members to gain a better understanding of how the objects in their project interact with each other. While UML sequence diagrams have many advantages, they are not without their faults. One of their downfalls is that they are limited in the information they can contain. UML sequence diagrams only show basic objects and their interactions. They cannot showcase other aspects of a project and thus must be used in conjunction with other design tools. While UML sequence diagrams can be flexible regarding which language is used for a project, they are often difficult to modify when a diagram has already been completed. This is especially true for larger projects, as they often have many different objects and interactions between the objects. If one object is removed or added, it can take a large amount of time to modify the diagram. One of their biggest flaws is that they can be expensive to create. Sequence diagrams are often created using dedicated software, which can add additional expense to a project. Depending on the project and the company, this can reduce the budget in other areas of the project and can result in a lower quality product. Generally, UML sequence diagrams are most helpful when used in larger projects and are best used for complicated functions or systems. UML sequence diagrams can be expensive, only making them a feasible option for larger companies that tackle larger projects which contain complicated functions or systems. UML sequence diagrams are best used to model usage scenarios, the logic of methods, and the logic of services. UML sequence diagrams can be interpreted as being visual object code, and as such, can be highly effective in modeling logic of functions or the processes associated with usage scenarios. UML sequence diagrams are best used before the programming process starts. UML sequence diagrams are useful for figuring out the logic of functions before they are written in code, and can help to reduce errors and increase understanding and the quality of code before the process even starts.
So to summarize, UML sequence diagrams are great for when you need a quick visualization on how a given system will work and flow. They also are not dependent on a certain programming language to be understood. But one of the downsides is they only show the main idea or big picture of the system. And they are best used for large projects that contain complicated functions and systems.